Well, the look on my friend's face when I showed up on that hike, looking way more like hobo than hiker, almost remade me think. Mm, Brad, let me start that over. So the look on my friend's face when I showed up for that hike, looking way more like hobo than hiker, almost made me rethink my sometimes mantra, which is say yes really when you should be saying no. And it worked out. So I'd love to share a story with you today. Recently, I was on a kayaking trip. And when I go on a kayaking trip, pretty much all we do is paddle. Like, that's it. So I don't plan for a lot of other other things to do except for maybe to eat. So it's an eat and paddle trip. And I'm on this eat and paddle trip. And what happened was a friend of mine dropped me a text and he said, "Hey, I hear you're in town. Would you like to join me on a hike?" And my first thought was, nah, no, I'm going to go paddle tomorrow. But then he said, I'm going to go hike Charlie's Bunion, which is a hike in the Smoky Mountains I've always wanted to do. And I thought, sure, that sounds like fun. So I started to reply immediately. And then my thought was, wait a second. Here you are. You have nothing to wear, but well, nothing to wear but kayaking clothes and jeans. You didn't even leave Texas with a coat. Not, I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking. It was pretty darn chilly in the Smokies when I got there. So I have no coat. I have no day pack. I have nothing. But I thought, whatever, I'm going. So I said, absolutely, I will be there. See you there. So I meet him in the parking lot. And let me just tell you what I looked like before I got out of the car. So I didn't have a coat, and I only had, like, basically, like I said, clothes to eat in, clothes to paddle and clothes to eat in. So I thought, "Okay." So I put on 3 shirts. It's a good look already, right? I've got 3 shirts on. I had 1 pair of pants that were kinda like lightweight, sun pants, so I put those on. Didn't have anything to go over those, but I thought, I'll warm up soon enough." So I put those on. I don't even have a hat, okay? So I don't have a hat. So Phil's got this like baseball cap in the car, so I put the baseball cap on. I don't have a day pack. So I've stuffed my pockets. Now I have like shorts or day pants on with my pockets bulging with snacks and sunscreen and all the things that I would normally put in a day pack. And I've got my water bottle in my hand because no, don't have a camelback with me. Have no hiking poles, but that was not a big deal. I knew I could do this hike without hiking poles. And the best piece of this whole thing was I had on my Keens. Now, these Keens had been put in the garbage. Normally, I would take my old shoes and give them to maybe, a place where people who really need something can have it, right? Maybe the Fishes and Loaves in our area or something like that. But these went in the garbage because my current foster dogs had removed the laces. They removed what holds the laces together. And so I just had like these sloppy Keens. I do not even know why I threw them in my car, but I threw them in my car. So here I am. I'm in sloppy Keens with no laces, and they're sandals. They're not like really hiking boots. And then the rest of my outfit. So I look like a rock star. I get out of my car. My friend takes one look at me as he steps toward me, and you see the look on his face. It's like, oh my God, what is she thinking? And he said, "Do you have a day pack?" And I said, "Nope, I don't have anything." So here I am, and it's cold. Like we're at the top of the Smokies, so we're up near Klingman's Dome, parking lot up that way. I don't know what cold is, but it's cold. It's windy, and I'm already cold, and I'm thinking, well, we better get moving or I'm going to freeze. And he said, "Are you okay going like that?" I said, "Absolutely. Why not?" So that was I said yes when I should have said no. What happened? So we go out on this hike, and it's a long hike. I mean, it ends up taking us about 5 hours, and it's I mean, on a level of hikes out there, it's called strenuous, and it got my attention. But what happened was I got to do this hike that I had always wanted to do, and I hadn't had anyone to go with me. It's a hike that I figured first time, definitely want to go with somebody. I'd always wanted to do it. It was a stunning day. So it's beginning to be fall out there. It's crisp. Once we get in the woods, it's not so cold and windy. It's sunny, bright sunshine, and it's just so beautiful. And as we do the hike, we get to the end, what's called Charlie's Bunion, and it's this like rock outcropping. And instead of going on the rock outcropping, we did the quote unquote locals track, which took us up and over so that we could look down on the rock, the people down there. We had it all to ourselves. It was so beautiful, such a beautiful hike. And as we walked back, he was kind of laughing at the way I'd shown up, and I just told him, I said, you know what? It was one of those times when I decided to say yes, even though I know I should say no, because I wasn't really prepared for this hike from the gear standpoint, and I hadn't been doing much hiking back home, but it turned out brilliant. So that's a quote unquote semi mantra that I've had for a very long time. Doesn't always work out, and I'll definitely see if I can't come up with a couple of those "this didn't work out so well" ideas, but I want to give you a couple more, because if I looked back on my life when I sat down to shoot or record this today, I looked back and I thought, some of the most important pivotal pivot times when my life changed, let's just go with that, were when I said yes, and I probably should have said no. So the first time I can think of was I'm walking down a dock. I'm probably, I don't know, call me 22 years old at the time. I had dropped my boyfriend off so that he could sail back from Corpus Christi to Houston on a race. And I wasn't a sailor, not at all, but I'm dropped him off and I'm going to drive the car back, and I'm walking down the dock, and this guy says, "Hey, you sail?" And I went, no, not really. He's like, "Where are you going?" I said, "Oh, I'm going to go back to Houston. I just dropped someone off." He's like, "No, you're coming with us. We need ballast." I was like, "Okay." And at that time, I mean, I wasn't a whole lot of ballast, but I was like, "Well, sure, absolutely, I'll go." Now, I don't even have a toothbrush on me. Like, I don't have a change of clothes. I don't have anything. I had just driven down, dropped off the guy, and was driving back. And so I said, "I don't even have a toothbrush." And the owner of the boat's like, "You can use mine." This was back in the day when we were we were sailors. So I'm on this boat. We take off. We immediately lose a halyard, which is the thing that pulls the sail up to the top, right? And he looks at me and he says, "You get in the bosun's chair. You need to go up. You're the smallest person in the boat." I'm like, "Okay." So here I am, never really been sailing before in my life. I'm out in Corpus Christi Bay. We're sailing along. We're kind of like leaned over, and they're hoisting me up the mast. And I am terrified of heights at this time, terrified. And at the same time, I was like, wow, I just did something. I just shifted the direction of my life. And I did. Like from that day on, I started sailing a lot. We got back to Houston. We sailed. It was, I don't know, call it a 2-day sail. It was probably 36 hours, something like that. Got back to Houston. I figured out a way to go get the car, all this stuff. But on that trip, what I realized was I had changed the trajectory of my life. I became a sailor. I started racing. I started going all across the country, into Mexico and Central America racing. Like, I completely changed what I had been doing in life, and it was so much fun. And it's only because that moment on that dock, when everything on one side of my brain was going, "Oh no, you're not getting on a boat with people you don't know when you don't even know what you're doing and you don't have a toothbrush," to the other piece of me is going, "Sure, why not?" So think about that. Like, think back on times in your life when maybe you said yes, and it was probably should have been a no, or maybe you said no and you wished you hadn't said it. Because I can think of a couple more times. Like one time was, um, fast forward, I'm in my 30s at this time, mid 30s, late 30s. I'm skating a lot. I'm a rollerblader. I'm a good rollerblader. And I'm skating with this group at night, and we go, we go far. We go 20 miles. I mean, that's pretty good distance on skates. And we're standing around afterwards, and one of the guys says, "I'm going to race the A to A." And I said, "What's the A to A?" And he said, "Oh, it's a race in from Athens, Georgia to Atlanta, Georgia." And I'm like, "Oh, that sounds like fun. I'll do that." Okay. Sometimes I don't think too, right? So first thing is, I don't even know how far it is. Second, I have no idea, but it is hilly as all get out. And I'm living in Houston, flat town, right? And I've never trained for anything like this in my life. But next thing I know, I'm training for this and I do it. Like I do it. It's hard, man. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done in my life up until that point. And at the same time, I did really well. I I I think it took me I don't even remember how long it took me. It took me a long time. I will say it took a really long time. But I placed in my group and I came away from it going, man, I just did something that I would never have thought I could do. 86-mile race through the hills of Georgia. And it was so cool, right? And it changed once again. That changed the trajectory of my life. I started realizing that I could do things that I hadn't thought about. I mean, the next year I did the MS 150. I was like, how hard could it be? It was hard. But that's a bike ride if you're not in Texas, it's a bike ride from Houston to Austin. And then the other one that I was thinking about was, and this was another life changer for me, was I had a different company back then. It was a company called Bayou City Outdoors. And one of my clients in the club called me and she said, "I have just done the coolest thing." I said, "Oh, what's that?" And she said, "I did a whitewater kayaking course." And I was like, "That sounds scary." She's like, "Oh my gosh, I was terrified the whole time. And we flipped over and we fell out of the kayaks and we had to learn how to pull our skirts. And pulling your skirt is like when you eject yourself out of the kayak when you're upside down. And it was so scary. And there was all this stuff. And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, why are you telling me this?" And she said, "Because you've got to do it." I went, "Oh no, I don't." A, I can't swim. B, I'm claustrophobic. And C, that's a really bad idea. And she was like, "Oh no, you will love this. And so will all the people you take." And all of a sudden, that little voice in my head went, "Sure, why not? Yes, I want to do that." And I will tell you, that's another one that changed my life completely because I now have something that I love so much. It is probably the most favorite thing I do in life is whitewater kayaking. And it still terrifies me. And I'm still not that great at it, but I love doing it. But just by stopping for a second and stopping that no that wanted to come out of my mouth and saying yes, everything changed. Now, let me step back and say one thing. I'm not here to say to you, next time someone says, "Hey, let's do this really stupid thing," you should say, "Wow, Kelly thinks that's a really good idea. Let's do it." No, 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 no. This is about when something comes up and there's a part of you that says, "Absolutely not." And then there's a part of you, it's usually a pretty quiet voice at the time, that's like, "Oh, wow, that would be really cool. What if we tried that?" And sometimes it's just listening to that voice and doing it. Sometimes it's just listening to that voice and going, "No, that's not my thing." But I also thought about like a couple of examples that I could give. Like one of them was I was on a hike with a friend. I didn't really know her at that time. She was we just met on this hike. We're out in the woods in Texas and we're doing this hike and the hike is broken into two groups. So the fast group is way ahead, call them, lions and gazelles. The gazelles are way ahead. I'm back here with the lions. We're just like taking our time, enjoying ourselves. And we've come to a couple of intersections and I automatically take the trail. And she said to me, "How do you know how to do that? I would never be able to lead a hike. This would scare me. I don't even know what to do." So, of course, since she said I could never do this, my thought was, yes, you could. I said, "Okay, you get in the front and I'm going to tell you what we're going to do. Like, I'll tell you how to do this." And it's simple. Like, this was a simple hike. It was basically paying attention to where you were. It was looking for the blazes on the trees. It was, looking for obstacles in the course, like, things. But they're big things, especially if you've never done this before. And now you've got there were probably 10 of us, 10 people following you and doing exactly what you say to do. But she did it. And I think that was a trajectory change for her too, because now she's doing all kinds of cool things. And then I've got one more for you that I thought about. It was another client. Back in the day when I was had done the MS 150, the bike ride, and now I'm dragging people along. I'm like, okay, let's all go do this because a little misery loves company. But not just that, because it is something that when you do it, you feel pretty darn amazing that you've accomplished this. So we're all talking about doing the MS 150 as a group. I'm kind of the person who trains everybody. And there's one person there, and she said, I'm only here because I'm here for my friend. I'm not going to do this. This is a bad idea. I'm not any good on a bike, and this doesn't sound like fun. So I said, so which one of those things really matter? The fact that it doesn't sound like fun or the fact that you're not any good on a bike? And she said, well, it probably is fun, but I'm not very good on my bike. So I tell you what, if you'll come along, if you'll say yes to this, I'll make sure that you get trained to the point that when you finish this ride, the 2-day ride, 150 miles, when you finish it, you're not going to be so much exhausted as you're going to be exhilarated. You're going to be so excited that you finish this and you're going to feel great. And you could see it on her face. She really didn't want to say yes, but she did. And to this day, I have a picture of her, like, this might sound creepy. I have a picture of her in one of my albums where she's holding her bike over her head at the end of that ride in front of the Austin State Capitol, and she is grinning ear to ear. That was somebody saying yes when they really wanted to say no. So ask yourself, I've had lots of, like I said already, I know I've had plenty of times when I said yes and I shouldn't have, but I also have a superpower, which is I forget most of the things that I've done that were really either not any fun or not very smart. But ask yourself, if next time something comes up, and it could be something little, it could be something big, it could be anything that you're thinking about, but somebody says, would you like to? Or you see something and you think that would be fun, or you're reading about something and you're like, man, wish I could do that. Try saying yes and seeing what happens. That's enough story time for me today. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful week and say yes to something fun, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye now.